Hello everyone. We are in the chapter, future tense. In the previous lesson we've learned the option of using will, in the future tense. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you the second option, future, be plus going to. I'll teach you positive sentences, negative sentences, yes/no questions, WH questions which are what, when, where, etc., and questions about the subject, who, or what. Let's start. Positive sentences. The sentence starts with the subject, followed by am, is, or are, depending on the subject. Then comes the phrase going to, followed by a verb, in its basic form. After the verb, comes the rest of the sentence. Danny is going to study engineering next year. The subject is Danny. The expression which indicates future is going to. We use is, because the subject, Danny, is equal to he. The verb study, stays as it is, in its basic form. The verb is always in its basic form. The rest of the sentence is, engineering next year. They are going to study engineering next year. The subject is they, that's why we use are. The expression which indicates future is, are going to. The verb study, stays as it is, in its basic form. The rest of the sentence is, engineering next year. Examples. Dina, send me a letter tomorrow. This is how the sentence should be, Dina is going to send me a letter tomorrow. Dina is a she, therefore we use, is. The expression which indicates future, should be, is going to. The verb send, stays as it is. Another one, they, sleep, in a hotel next month. This is how the sentence should be, they are going to sleep in a hotel, next month. We use are, because the subject is, they. The expression which indicates future is, are going to. The verb sleep stays as it is. Negative sentences. The sentence starts with the subject, followed by am, is, or are, depending on the subject. Then, not going to, a verb in its basic form, and the rest of the sentence. The term that expresses negation is, not going to. If the subject is I, we use the term, I am not going to, or I'm not going to. If the subject is he, she, or it, we use the term, is not going to, or, isn't going to. If the subject is you, we, or they, we use the term, are not going to, or, aren't going to. Danny is not going to study engineering next year, or, Danny isn't going to study engineering next year. Danny is a he, so we use is not, or isn't. Then comes going to. No need to mention that the verb study, stays as it is, in its basic form. They are not going to study engineering next year, or, they aren't going to study engineering next year. The subject is they, that is why we use are not, or aren't. Then comes going to. Again, the verb study, stays as it is, in its basic form. More examples. Dina, not send me a letter tomorrow. The sentence should be, Dina is not going to send me a letter tomorrow, or, Dina isn't going to send me a letter tomorrow. Dina is a she, therefore, we use is not or isn't. Then comes the expression which indicates future, going to, and the verb, send, which stays as it is. Another one, they, not sleep, in a hotel next month. The sentence should be, they are not going to sleep in a hotel next month, or, they aren't going to sleep in a hotel next month. We use are not, or aren't, because the subject is they. Going to. The verb sleep stays as it is. Yes/no questions. Yes/no questions always start with am, is, or are, depending on the subject. Then comes the subject, followed by going to, verb in its basic form, and the rest of the question. Is Danny going to study engineering next year? Are they going to study engineering next year? I guess that everything is clear by now. I have nothing to add. More examples. Is Dina going to send me a letter tomorrow? Are they going to sleep in a hotel next month? Nothing more to add. WH questions. As usual, I'll list some of the WH questions first. What? When? Where? Why? Which? Who? How? How doesn't start with WH, but is also a WH question. The question will always start with a WH question, followed by am, is, or are, depending on the subject. Then comes the subject, followed by going to, the verb in its basic form, and the rest of the question. When is Danny going to study engineering? The question starts with the WH question, when. The subject is Danny, so we use is. Going to, is the expression which indicates future. The verb study, stays in its basic form. What are they going to study next year? The question starts with the WH question, what. The subject is they, so we use are. Going to, and the verb study, which stays in its basic form. More examples. What is Dina going to send me tomorrow? Where are they going to sleep next month? No need for any further explanations. Questions about the subject. At this point of the course, we already know that question about the subject will always start with who, or what, depending on the subject. If the subject is human, the question will begin with who. If the subject is not human, the question will begin with what. Example for who. Mary. The girls. My sister. Aunt Rebecca, and so on. All of them are human. Example for what. This bird. The chair. My shirt. Your glasses, etc. Not human. After the who or the what, comes is, and then, going to, followed by a verb, in its basic form, then comes the rest of the question. In question about the subject, we always use is going to, no matter what the subject is. Examples. Who is going to study engineering next year? Who is going to send me a letter tomorrow? Who is going to sleep in a hotel next month? That's it. This is all the material. Now, let's do some more examples. My dad, tell me a story tomorrow night. Positive. My dad is going to tell me a story tomorrow night. Negative. My dad is not going to tell me a story tomorrow night, or, my dad isn't going to tell me a story tomorrow night. Yes/no question. Is my dad going to tell me a story tomorrow night? WH question. What is my dad going to tell me tomorrow night? Question about the subject. Who is going to tell me a story tomorrow night? At this stage, the material should be clear. If it is not clear, replay the video and listen to it again. We will do 3 more examples, and then, we'll enter the website to practice. David and Dan, whisper, tomorrow. That is how it should be. Positive. David and Dan are going to whisper tomorrow. Negative. David and Dan are not going to whisper tomorrow, or, David and Dan aren't going to whisper tomorrow. Yes/no question. Are David and Dan going to whisper tomorrow? WH question. When are David and Dan going to whisper? Question about the subject. Who is going to whisper tomorrow? Mother, cook for us great food next Monday. Positive. Mother is going to cook for us great food next Monday. Negative. Mother is not going to cook for us great food next Monday, or, Mother isn't going to cook for us great food next Monday. Yes/no question. Is Mother going to cook for us great food next Monday? WH question. When is Mother going to cook for us great food? Question about the subject. Who is going to cook for us great food next Monday? The children play football in the park next week. Positive. The children are going to play football in the park next week. Negative. The children are not going to play football in the park next week, or, the children aren't going to play football in the park next week. Yes/no question. Are the children going to play football in the park next week? WH question. What are the children going to play in the park next week? Question about the subject. Who is going to play football in the park next week? Now is the time to enter the Grammarland homepage to start practicing. Enter the website via the link in the description area below the video. We would like to ask you again to give us a share, like, and to subscribe to our videos. Any feedback you have will help us improve this course. Now enter our home page via the link in the description area, or enter the next lesson, homework, via the link at the top of the screen. The Grammarland team wishes you lots of fun and success.